picture this. You're 62 years old with $300,000 sitting in the bank. Your mortgage payoff, also $300,000. Everyone's telling you to pay it off and retire debt-free. What if I told you that decision could cost you over $100,000 in just 5 years? And what if there's a third option nobody's talking about that could have your home paid off in under 7 years while keeping your money liquid? I am Ron Siegel, certified liability advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest financial questions facing retirement age homeowners. Should you pay off your mortgage before you retire? Here's what most retirement planners get wrong. They're so focused on eliminating debt, they forget about liquidity. And liquidity is one of the three critical factors in our framework: safety, liquidity, and return. Let me share a story about a couple I worked with. They had that same $300,000 decision to make. Everyone in their family told them to pay off the house, be debt-free in retirement. They said, sounds great, right? But we ran the numbers through our total cost analysis model. If they kept that $300,000 liquid and invested in a modest 6% return over 5 years, they'd have over $400,000. Yes, they'd still have the mortgage payment, but they'd also have $100,000 more in their pocket and full access to their capital if they needed it. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Ron, what about mortgage interest I'm paying? Great question. Let's talk about the household blended interest rate. Before you rush off to pay off a 4% mortgage, look at the rest of your debt picture. Got credit card balances at 22%, car loans at 8%. That's where your money should go first. It's not about eliminating debt. It's about managing it strategically. I had a listener call in a few months back, 65, had been paying extra on his mortgage for 15 years. And he was proud he'd almost paid it off entirely. Then his air conditioning died, $12,000 to replace it. He had to take it out of his retirement savings and got hit with taxes on the withdrawal. If he'd kept more liquidity instead of throwing extra dollars at the mortgage, he could have handled that emergency without touching his retirement accounts. That's the real cost of tying up your money in your house. Your home has value, sure, but you can't pay for a new roof or cover medical expenses, student loans, college, weddings with home equity unless you borrow against it. And guess what? At 65 or 70, qualifying for a loan gets harder and the terms get worse. But here's where it gets really interesting. There's a third option that most people approaching retirement have never heard about. It's called a first lien HELOC, and it comes with the best of both worlds: aggressive debt payoff and maintained liquidity. Let me walk you through how this works with a real example. A couple came to me last year. They were 63 and 61, still $250,000 on their home at 5.5%. They had about $6,000 a month in positive cash flow after all expenses. They were on track to pay off their traditional mortgage 18 years, well into their 80s. We looked at the Wealth Builder program. Now, the HELOC rate was actually higher than their mortgage rate, 7.25%. Most people would stop right there and say, Ron, that's a terrible deal. Here's what they don't understand. With a first lien HELOC, the interest is calculated on your daily average, not the full loan amount. When you deposit your income directly into the HELOC every month, it immediately reduces the balance you're paying on interest. Then you'll pull out what you need for expenses. We ran the numbers. That couple could pay off their entire $250,000 mortgage in just under 6 years. Total interest paid about $48,000. Compare that to the current mortgage where they pay another $97,000 in interest over 18 years. The effective interest rate ended up being under 2% because of how their cash flow worked against the balance every single month. And here's the kicker. They maintained full access to that equity the entire time. If they needed $20,000 for medical expenses or wanted to help their grandkids with college, they could pull it right out. Try doing that when all your money is locked up in home equity. Now, some of you are thinking about mortgage interest deduction. Here's the reality. That deduction matters less than you think, especially as it gets closer to paying off your loan. The further along you are, the more each payment goes to principal and less to interest. So you're actually deducting less from your taxes each year. And with the standard deduction where it is today, most retirees aren't even itemizing anymore. So the strategy, let's be clear. I'm not saying everyone should carry a mortgage into retirement, and I'm not saying the Wealth Builder strategy is right for everyone. Some situations still call for paying off the mortgage the traditional way. If you've got high interest debt handled, plenty of liquid reserves, a very limited cash flow, and you sleep better without any mortgage at all, then paying it off might make sense for you. But here's what matters most. Strategy beats rate always. It's not about whether you have a mortgage or don't have a mortgage. It's about whether your approach serves your overall wealth building strategy while maintaining safety, liquidity, and return. The question isn't, should I pay off my mortgage before I retire? The real question is, what's the best use of my capital? How do I maintain liquidity for unexpected? How do I get out of debt as quickly as possible without sacrificing financial flexibility? Let me give you 3 things to think about before you make any decision about your mortgage retirement. First, what's your household blended interest rate? At all your debt payments and all your balances gives you a true picture of what you're paying to borrow money. rsrlinks.com/calculators has that blended calculator in there. Second, how much liquid capital do you have access right now? If you pay off the house, how much is left for emergencies, opportunities, or unexpected expenses? And how easily can you get to that liquidity if you need it later? Third, what's your monthly positive cash flow? This is the key to the wealth builder. If you've got significant cash flow after covering all expenses, that money can work incredibly hard to eliminate your mortgage debt while staying accessible. I've been doing this since 1983. I've seen thousands of families make this decision. The ones who build the most wealth in retirement aren't the ones who rush to pay everything off. And they're not the ones who ignore their debt either. They're the ones who understand suitability, not just eligibility. They're the ones who manage their debt strategically. If you're approaching retirement or already there and you're trying to figure out the right move for your mortgage, let's look at your complete picture. Visit rsrlinks.com/keysteps, rsrlinks.com/keysteps, and get your financial house in order with a comprehensive analysis. We'll look at your safety, liquidity, and return. We'll build a strategy that works for your specific situation. Want to learn more about the Wealth Builder First Lien HELOC program? Head over to gethomeselect.com for an in-depth information about how this strategy works and whether it makes sense for you. Remember, it's not about having the lowest interest rate. It's about having the best strategy, and strategy beats rate always. Thanks for listening. I am Ron Siegel, your certified liability advisor, helping families build wealth in strategic debt management. And that is the Borrow Smart segment brought to you by gethomeselect.com, gethomeselect.com.